We'll see, and then Debbie will take over basketball. Right. And then you coach with, right? Football, basketball.
Well, 1 year I hope the girls won't see mine.
You look like you had a good time.
What's up, vacation girl?
Oh, I'm sorry. Where's Jen? Yeah.
What's up, buddy?
How are you, sir?
Glad you can make it.
See what they got today.
Like it's gonna start.
Hey.
Hey guys,
We are.
Dude, call me. Ryan, I knew that. Stop that. Well, I. Either.
Okay.
And then I just kind of.
Hey, girl. Hey, John, can you close the door for me, please? I knew the answer.
Is this where we get to sit? You get to sit up here. However, in whatever order the senior guy is here. Senior guy? It's rolling, so.
Hey, guys, thanks for coming. We're gonna try to get out of here at 7:30 on the dot, so here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna let each one of the three assigners just
Last time I played golf.
do a little introduction, kind of what their expectations are. I got a list of 13 questions that people responded to, so we're gonna go through those 13 questions. When we're done with those, if you have questions, raise your hand, ask your questions, and we'll get them answered. Andy's recording this, so it will be on YouTube. It's actually on YouTube Live now, and then you'll be able to go watch it later if you want to watch it later for your viewing entertainment. So we're gonna try to get done right at 7:30. So what we'll do is we'll start with Bob, just give a quick, expectation kind of thing, and then Bob and then John, and then I'll get to the questions. So thanks for coming, here we go.
Expectation.
Just what you're looking for in the signer, guys gonna sign up. What you want the guys to look like at the beginning of next year, and ladies.
My name is Bob Markin. I assign for the Tri-Peaks League, which I think consists of 14 schools right now. It's always changing, but those schools geographically go from Lamar, Colorado to Buena Vista, Colorado, and all parts in between. I believe of those 14, depending on the year, either 6 or 7 of them are located in or near the Colorado Springs area. So those are serviced directly by the CSBOA. There are 6 different officiating associations that service the league that I assign. So anyway, just give you that picture to help you understand that my responsibility is bigger than CSBOA in the Colorado Springs area. Some of those schools get officials out of multiple associations. My expectations as an assigner, quite sure where to go with that, but I guess if there was one thing I would look for in an official, in one word that described it, I would use the word hustle. The most frustrating thing to me is watch people officiate and they not work hard enough to get themselves in a position to make a decision. The decisions we have to make on the court, as you all know, are tremendously difficult. And if we don't work hard enough to get ourselves in a place to have good looks at plays, then we're basically out there guessing. And even when we're in a good place, sometimes it seems like a guess, but to have a chance, I believe you gotta work hard to get in a good place, to have good looks, to make good decisions. The second thing I would tell you about expectations really is more of an observation. I was told a long time ago as I was being fired from a job is that perception becomes reality. And I think that's really true in this business. And the thing that's really important to me, and I think should be important to all of us, is that we do this for the right reason. And remember that the sport we're officiating, like all sports at the high school level, is all about the students playing the game, the coaches coaching the game, and the parents. And we as officials are way down the list on that. It is not about us. And however that is perceived by those other people really becomes reality. There's no way to know someone's true motive for doing this, but if it's perceived that you're doing it for yourself, whether that's true or not, it really does become reality. And maybe you can be doing it for yourself, but the perception is you're in it for the kids, and that becomes reality. So I think that perception is really, really important.
I want to know about him being fired though.
How do you get fired, Robert?
Sorry, another time.
Hey, I'm Bob Lancy. I'm responsible for the, sorry, that's very loud. I could hear it out there. Everything was pretty good until you walked in.
I just saying.
Oh, and everything worked really well until you walked in, so. So I talked a little softer, Mr. Bowman. So I'm Bob Lancy. I'm responsible for the CSML 4A, 5A varsity and sub-varsity assignments, and the BFL varsity, and also the sub-varsity assignments. And then the Tri-Peaks, I'm responsible for their sub-varsity assignments as well. I've been an assigner for this organization. I can't remember what date I became the assigner, but it's been a long time. But we talk about expectations, and my expectation of those who work games for me is, number one, expect them to be professional on and off the basketball court. And what that means to me may be different to you, because I'm a cold and tie kind of guy. If you're a varsity basketball official, you should look the part, act the part, speak the part, do the part. Just be, I I just read a book today. A good friend of mine wrote a book about officiating. And one of the things he mentioned was when you become an official, you take on this new persona. You become part of the game, but you also become a professional of this great avocation that we have. You have to understand the rules, enforce the rules. And I'm going to send an email out. You got to read this book. It's just a simply outstanding book that he wrote. But those are my expectations. Just be professional on the basketball court. And we'll talk about this as we go through some of the questions that we'll ask. So, John?
John Caricano, as of now, Pikes Peak Athletic Conference, if you've heard or maybe you haven't, there is going to be a merger, and it's going to be called the Pikes Peak Athletic League. It's made up of 6 of the existing PPAC teams and 5 of the 5A CSML teams. And I don't think they have hired their signers, so I'm not sure how that's going to play in for next year. My expectations of an official, Bob Markin and I, today spent some time with the UCCS baseball coach, and we asked him questions about expectations of officials in his sport. And they were very similar to what I think we want, and he talked about poise, composure, judgment, consistency, and I think those are actually pretty good expectations for all of us as basketball officials as well.
All right, so here's what we do. I got the list of questions. I'm going to ask the question, Bob Lancey. Bob will answer, and then Bob and John, you guys feel free to add some additional input, and then we'll just rotate between the 3 assignments. And the first question we received, this is for Bob Lancey. With the new tax laws, officials do not receive the same rate of mileage as we did in your past as a deduction. We either need an increase in game fee for these games or start receiving mileage from the games. How do you plan on helping solve this issue?
I'm not sure if our organization knows, but the CHASA fees and mileage fees are all determined by the Legislative Council. What we do as assigners and administrators, will provide inputs to Tom Robinson, who will provide our comments to that council. Good news for us is that for varsity officials, we're going to get paid $60 a game. So I think that's outstanding for our varsity officials. For sub-varsity officials, I think Tom is still working on the game fees, and we'll probably not see a raise this year, but there's a possibility we may see a raise next year. Mileage stipends, I mean, it's $2 for this year, and in 2020, it will be $6. 2022 is going to go to $10. And all those fees are calculated in the game fees and everything else. And I'm not sure if you read my email or not, but I met with the BFL athletic directors, and for years we have been paid mileage one way. So starting this season, the lead driver will get paid mileage round trip. And I think that's a good deal for us. And that's for, in the BFL, that's good for middle school and for high school. So we're making some progress. As far as our respective leagues, I'm not sure we can dictate the mileage rates for them, but Bob or John, you
Okay. All right, John Caricano. Why do we get the same games year? I think they meant to say the same games every year. I could be wrong, but let's go with why we get the same games every year.
is that a true statement would be my first question back. I think, as assigners, when we do our draws, we look at, who's available and pick based on that. And then we try to work, the officials into games that we think, will make them and the game successful. And if, games are being repetitive, I think Arbiter has actually a filter in there, right, that, or at least a notification if you are picking officials that just repeated that game. Is that correct?
Correct, but it's not on an annual basis, so.
Okay, so, I don't, as an assigner, I don't look at it that way. I look at each day and see the games that we have and see who I was able to pick, and then try to work, those crews into games that I think are successful. I don't really pay too much attention to repeat games. I don't think that's my responsibility. My responsibility is to represent the league and the teams in that league, and doing so by assigning officials to those games.
You guys want to add anything? Bob?
Really don't need to add anything, but I was reminded, I think it's important everyone understands that we work for a league, or I do. The Tri-Peaks League even pays me a little bit of money. So that, my responsibility is to them and those schools and their ADs and their athletes and their coaches. And in the midst of that, I'll try to do the best I can for whatever officiating association we're getting officials for. But our number one responsibility is to those schools.
I think we have to find a real good balance between supporting the league and supporting this organization. And often when I look at the schedule, I may see, I'm going to pick somebody out of the audience here, maybe Rick Cooper, because you're sitting right in front of me. You know, Rick may end up getting 5 Mitchell girls games. And I don't really monitor that. I look at that school needs a good basketball official, and Rick Cooper happens to be available. So Rick Cooper's going to get that game. So that's how I look at it as well.
Okay. Bob, this question is for you. Why do we not get games from all of the assigners each year?
I guess I'd start with what John said. My first question is whether that's a true statement or not. I don't know that. We have a lot of discussion amongst the three of us. We did again when Ray was part of this group, regarding officials and sharing opinions about who we think is ready to work, kind of what level of game, and right or wrong, the lower classification leagues have kind of always been the introductory leagues. I assigned 3A, which is kind of in the middle of that. So we will have discussions about particular official and whether we all think they're ready to work at whatever A level they might be ready to work at. So I guess all I can say to you is there is a lot of open discussion amongst us, and we ask the opinion of other respected officials when making those decisions.
Methodologies of assignment, and I'm going to just share mine. The first criteria that I use is based on previous year's state tournament officials. Some may say that that's popular type of vote that those officials get in, but what it is, it's measurable. And when I have to talk to ADs about a specific game or a specific official, I can use that information in the dialogue with that athletic director. So that's my first criteria. Who was last year's state playoff officials? That's who I try to select at the top. And then of those officials that are in the state playoff, I have open dialogue with many of them. And I want to know from them who they like to work with. that maybe aren't, the final weekend officials. And then I use those officials as well. And then third, maybe even down the road, is my opinion about officials and if they can work varsity games, if they're ready to work varsity games. But I really make an emphasis to make sure that last year's state playoff officials that worked the final weekend are kind of in my top group of officials that I select. And then I go from there. On top of that, part of the reason why that can be done is because Bob, on the varsity level, Bob Lansey assigns 80% of the varsity games. So his pool is going to be a lot bigger. You're at 6%, I believe, and I'm at 14% of the games, of all the varsity games. So my methodology can be a little bit more selective than what maybe Bob Lansey's can be, just because of the amount of games that he has to assign.
I guess it's your turn, Bob. Actually, I should just give this to Bob Markin. Bob, and I know the answer for you, but I'm gonna ask the question. Why do all of the assigners not attend our meetings? So, I know you're 100 miles away.
That's probably the first answer. I live about 120 miles from Colorado Springs, 110 something. And I'm down here probably a couple times a week officiating games. So it really logically doesn't make sense for me to come back here on meetings in the local area for the Upper Arkansas Valley Basketball Officials Association, because I'm a member of that and officiate out of that group, as well as I've paid dues here since about 1983, I think. So anyway, just logically, doesn't really make a lot of sense. I have come on special invitation, would be glad to do so at any time. If it makes sense for me to come early, the start of the season, I'd be glad to do that, but it doesn't make a lot of sense for me to drive here every Monday night.
I don't think you two have anything. Well,
Actually, if you don't mind.
No, not at all.
He lives quite a distance away. I'm not quite sure what the benefit, other than people may not know who Bob Markin is and or he's responsible for the Tri-Peaks. You know, we can flash a picture on the screen for those who don't know who he is, but scary. Yeah, that can be a little scary, especially with the stripes on. But the guy does a real nice job for us, and if you don't know who Bob Markin is, if you don't know who John Caracato is, you don't know who Bob Lansey is, then you need to come see us and let us know that. Because I think the three of us, not to give us any kudos or anything, but I think we do a pretty damn good job in signing games and working together and communicating. If we don't communicate in person, we communicate in emails, and we say, hey, what do you think about Richard Gray? And, you know, so we get that opinion, you know, get selected and those kind of things. But, you know, you can't expect somebody to go living 2 hours away and come to a meeting. I mean, that's really a tough question, I think. And on his own dime too. I mean, John and I live in the city, and we $5 worth of gas, but, you know, ask this gentleman to come to every Monday night meeting. I think that's a little tough to ask, to be quite honest.
And just to piggyback on what Bob said, at the end of this, when we do our question and answer, I'd like to hear from you on why that question's relevant. Maybe we're missing something here, and I'd like to hear it from the audience on what points we're missing with assigners attending meetings.
Okay, next question is for Bob Lane. When we say we are in this for the kids, we really need to think hard about that statement. From where I have been looking, that is not the case.
That's a statement. That's a correct question.
That is a statement, but do you want to respond to that?
Oh, good.
Or do you guys have anything with it?
Well, it's kind of a tough statement to answer, but Yeah, true, we're here for the kids, but we're here to also provide a service to the schools and to the teams. We have to know what we're gonna do out there. We have to be proficient at our skill set. And I don't quite understand that question, though, that statement, to be quite honest. You know, we're here for the kids. And it's partially true, but we have a job to do as well, and we have to be very proficient at it.
It's a great answer to this.
Statement to the statement.
Okay, John. Yeah. I'm not laughing at the question, I'm just laughing in general. Coming from other states, I use the playoffs being a reward for a great year of officiating. Here in Colorado Springs, the playoffs are a popularity contest. What's to keep me from showing up every meeting next year with pizza and donuts, campaigning for postseason votes? What can we do to change this broken process?
Well, it's a statewide process, and I don't know if it's broken. You can bring all the pizza you want, but you better be able to work.
Bob or Bob?
Whoever presented that question, I mean, you measure your success based upon your own attributions, or, I mean, if we look, John and I sit on and Kevin's, we three of us, and Katie Parker, we sit on the postseason selection committee, and we look at the list of those who make the final week, and they're pretty good basketball officials, and they deserve to be there. Now, I'm hoping that everyone's the voting process. The voting process is your peers vote for you, athletic directors vote for you, signers vote for you, and coaches. Okay, so in the popularity concept that whoever brought that question up, you're voting for the best of the best. So take it upon yourself. I mean, you may be buddies with Bob Lancey, but Bob Lancey may not be a very good basketball official, and I don't deserve your vote, even if I'm your friend. So when you vote for the person that you want to work for and represent this organization during the playoffs. So it's a little integrity thing on our members. But when someone says that the people who are on that final list are not qualified, they're qualified. They can work. It's a tough process. If you haven't sat through that, I'll be glad to share our experience. It's a very, very good experience, but we make some tough decisions on who's going to be in the final week, or who's going to get what game. And if you want to know where you came out in the voting process, I'm on my list tonight if you want to see where it's at. I will tell you, I'll tell you the top vote getters numbers and where you fell into, what you need to do to get better. And again, I echo what John said, bring the pizza and donuts, but you better work.
I want to add something. Broke system. This broke system had 12 new officials? 12 new officials from this association worked the state championship week last weekend. I think the system is actually working. And I think a lot of us do what Bob just asked, and that's with integrity, vote for the people that you think represent CSBOA at the end of the year, at the last weekend. And when you have 12 new officials work the last weekend, I was pretty proud of that. I was pretty proud of the CSBOA for having that, proud of those officials that worked hard to accomplish that. And I think the system actually does what we want it to do.
It's Bob's turn. Marcus. I think I want all three of you guys to chime in on this though. Do you punish referees for working for other assigners? What is your expectation of loyalty by referees as independent contractors?
No. Answer to the question. But in practical terms, if somebody think about how we do the assigning. Early October, we pick officials. And then, so we pick them for a date, a pool of officials, each of us. So the date's December 13th. We work out a rotation, who gets to go first, second, third, and then we change it the next day and try to rotate that around. So in October, we're picking officials for games that are being played in February. So if you choose then to go take assignments from some other association, and now I'm plugging in that February date, and you were available when I picked you back in October, now you're no longer available. That means now I'm last in the rotation because I'm taking who's left. So if that happens a few times, it causes me as a signer to say, I don't know if I'm servicing our schools best anymore by picking this official in October because they're no longer available when I get to them later in the season and I have to plug in somebody else that I didn't pick for whatever reason. So just in practical terms, it causes me as a signer to say, I don't know if this person's going to be available, so it doesn't make a lot of sense to pick them in October anymore because they're going to take assignments somewhere else. Not punishing them, I'm just trying to do the job the best I can, and then when they're not there anymore, it's not best to pick them.
I'll expand on the no that Mark had just said, and my response is hell no. You're kind of questioning our integrity as assigners and leaders of this organization, and I think the only thing that upsets me as an assigner is if I give you an assignment on a particular day and you turn that assignment because you get a better deal in Denver or somewhere else. That will really upset me. And whoever wrote this question is, you're absolutely correct. You're an independent contractor. You can work anywhere that you want to. But, capital B, capital U, capital T, there has got to be a sense of loyalty to this organization. Has to be. Okay? This is the greatest organization in Colorado. There's nobody better than us. And if we got people going up to work for ASO or Denver Metro or whatever, just because you want to go up there, that's okay, you can go. And I want you to get better if you get an assignment through ASO. Get better. Because you know what? If you get better in those 5 games you got through ASO, they're going to be better for us for the 15 games that you're going to get from us. So more power to you. But when you go up there, don't forget that you represent this organization and work hard when you work for those people up there.
73 years ago, when Bob started assigning games, I remember him saying this one thing, and I think it really is appropriate, and it's someone else is going to get that game if you turn it back. And it's an opportunity for that official to showcase what they have to the assigner as well as those teams. So yeah, go ahead and work the games that you choose. And if you happen to turn back a game, all right, we'll pick another official, and that gives that official the opportunity, an opportunity to show what they have. So, yeah, that doesn't bother me at all.
Thanks, guys. Was it 73? Oh, 74. 74 years ago. Bob Lancey, I just picked on Bob up first last time, so
Okay.
and you probably know this better than anybody. Why aren't all assigners a part of the ranking system evaluation?
Well, that's actually a very good question. And I think we'll bring it up to our executive board and maybe we should. Because right now we just have one assigner, that happens to be me. And, you know, to be honest, I don't know all 180 of you, your skill set. I know 179 of you, to be quite honest. But, and I think the other issue is that summer basketball, I do probably about 80% of summer basketball. So I've got either myself going out, got Gary Montiel going out leading, a bunch of other folks are going out watching, observing, and providing some input to me. And, you know, we share that input with Bob and John. And at the varsity draw, and we go from there. But that's a good idea. So Bob, you'll have to travel to our meeting and go into this stuff and not get paid for it. So, and I think John will be up to it as well. But I think their input would be very valuable, and it's a good question.
John or Bob? And Bob, we'll set up a Zoom meeting so you can sit home in your pajamas and do the meeting for them.
Okay, thanks. And your glasses.
My glasses.
Okay, John Caricato. How much does participating in summer league basketball influence regular season assignments?
I think it probably has a significant influence on assignments. And it's not about, official X did 27 summer league games. What it is that if you do those 27 games correctly, you're gonna get better. And, the ranking system will reflect that, and word of mouth reflects that. As I mentioned earlier, when a young official or an official who's looking to get exposure into varsity games works with a high-level varsity official, and that varsity official calls and says, this person can work, that's priceless. And it's probably the highest regard that, as far as feedback, for me, is when that high-level varsity official says that about an upcoming official. So yeah, I think anytime you can get the exposure through camps, through summer leagues, it's a big benefit for all the officials that work those games.
So when I make my varsity assignments, I really look at those who have supported me in the summer league program. Summer league, SoCo, whatever else we got out there. So you are on my preferred list, top list, but you gotta remember, as John said, just because you did 27 games, you did 100 games, did you do 100 games correctly? Did you do 100 games where you deserve a shot at a varsity game? And I think we as a society, we have to look at that, we have to earn our way to that varsity assignment. You want to be a varsity basketball official, earn your way to the top. Don't expect it. And when you get that shot, you better shine. Because what Bob Manson's philosophy is, don't muck it up. But work hard in some of it. I mean, when you go to camp, you do everything by the book. When your hands straight up, you're in position, you're hustling. And then when you do summer league basketball, we get to wear shorts, which I don't like, but some of us tend not to do the right things, or we don't communicate very well. Or we talk to a coach of a 5th and 6th grade team, and guess what? That coach happens to be a head varsity coach somewhere. And I get a phone call and say, well, I sure didn't like Bob Lansing in that game. I don't want to ever see him in my gym. So you gotta be careful. You gotta work at all those things in summer league basketball. But I use that a lot just to make some choices for some varsity games.
So I'm a little old school in this area when it comes to all the summer involvement stuff, whether as athletes or officials or whatever. I think we've put some expectations so high that it gets in the way of people living life. So I say it's up to you. I don't make any decision on assignments based on what you did in the summer. But back to what John said, when I hear from somebody, Kevin Kazuski was observing some game somewhere and saw this person in the summer and they've really upped their game and doing well, then that's really valuable input. Or for a couple of years, I worked as a clinician out at Dave Hall's camp at the Air Force, which no longer exists. And truthfully, several of them looking at right here got games because of those interactions and what I saw there and conversations we had. I'm working a little camp up at Western State where Katie's coordinating officials here in late June. So if I see you there and I like the stuff you're doing, it probably ups your chances of getting assignments. But I would never come to this person and say, well, they didn't work any summer league basketball, so I'm not gonna get my game, because I don't know whether you did or didn't. And I really, in one sense, don't care, but I hope you care to the point that you would do it to make yourself better.
It's your turn, right? There are lots of subjective standards used to evaluate officials, appearance, hustle, mechanics. Now, what objective standards do you use to evaluate officials?
Yeah, I'm not sure all those things listed are subjective or objective. That was part of the conversation we tried to have with this coach this afternoon, and we couldn't even agree what subjective and objective meant, so. But one thing that was said there that I agree with that's really quite objective is negative feedback from schools, ADs, or whatever. If you consistently, as an official, go to a school and I get a phone call from that school after you've worked there, and things happen. I'm not talking about one of those phone calls, but that starts repeating itself. That's one of those perception things. Like, for some reason, when this official shows up in a gym, things go wrong. There's some connection made, and that becomes objective after a while. It's like, this isn't for what, that doesn't mean the official's bad, it's just, it's not working. When they show up in the gym for the Tri-Peaks League, things go haywire. So maybe they need to not work in that league and work somewhere else. That can be objective. I think some of those things, the hustle thing for me is objective. If you're making call after call when seen on video or film, and yes, I watch some of that when I get access to that. Or I come, when I'm working a game here, I try to find out who's working ahead of me, and even though it's a long drive, I'll usually show up by the start of the JV game because I want to see people out there. I think some of those things listed can be objective and seen through that process.
So I'm going to talk about all three levels, freshman, JV, and varsity. I like the official that brings a positive energy to that gym. If I'm sitting in that stand and I see somebody walk in and they've got the look, they've got the energy, they've got their head high, and they're ready to work, to me, I think that's a good sign that you're going to go far in this application. When somebody walks in and they got their head down and they're grumpy, and I know this person's not going to have a very good game. So, and I talked about I had a conversation with a member of this organization about the it factor. What is the it factor? I don't know. Yeah, I think you have to answer that question yourself. What is that it factor? What do I bring to this game? If I was a basketball, what would that basketball tell me how good of a job I did on this particular evening? Did I do a good job? Did I not do a good job? Did I work good with my partners? Did I bring something to this team that I'm working with? That's what I'm looking for. And the other thing I'm looking for is I gotta trust you. I mean, you put a lot of trust in me and getting me into those assignments, but I've got to trust you in doing a good job so I don't get that phone call the next morning and say, oh my God, what did you send Bob Nancy to this game? You did a terrible job. So I got to trust you and you got to trust me. And I think it's a good combination. So.
I don't know, other than the phone call, AD or the coach, if there's really any other objective, say it.
OBJECTIVE, sound it out.
Non-subjective measures, other than the phone calls. But what I do use is phone calls that I receive from your partners. Phone calls that I receive from people who saw the JV game, the freshman game. And when I hear from an official that I want to work, I would like to work with this another official, that's value, and that will happen. I don't know if anything else is more, can be more objective, in what we do. The human factors involved, and my eyes looking at an official, if they pass the test, they pass the test.
Thank you, guys.
And if it's objective.
Bob Lansing, how can an official move into the various leagues if the assigner never sees them?
Well, like I said earlier, it's hard to look at 180 basketball officials. So what we rely on is input from your partners, input from observers, input from coaches, athletic directors, and that's how we evaluate you. Again, if you're working with a senior guy, let's say you're working with John Caricato, and you guys did a bang-up job, and John doesn't say anything about you, then there could be a reason why he didn't say anything about you. Maybe he didn't do a very good job, or he forgot, or he just didn't communicate that. But again, I don't know about these two guys, but I can't go out and see 180 basketball officials. Cannot, it's impossible. So I rely on a lot of information, and that's how I make my assessment.
And I think in that example that you used with me, I have a responsibility to actually communicate with those officials on what I see. I'll just go back to feedback that we get from veteran officials. Kevin Kazuski 3 times last year went and worked a JV game with officials who we handpicked to work with him because we heard great things about them and they're up and coming. So he went and worked with them, and then he provided us feedback. So there's things like that occur that maybe the association isn't aware of, but we make that effort to actually work with officials within this group and get their feedback on officials. We talked about Gary. Gary goes out and sees 40 games a week. Probably that's a low number. And he shares that information with us. And it's just not at the varsity level. So when an official at the JV level or the C squad level gets his attention, he shares that information, and then it starts to roll. And then I'll get a hold of Kevin and say, Kevin, are you available on this Wednesday to go and work with these 2 officials that I've heard good things about? And we get information from him. I also work sub-varsity games on Wednesdays in the PPAC for that same purpose. Not to share information on court, but also get a pretty good perspective of how they work as a team, as a crew on the floor during a game.
You want? So maybe you're hearing the same thing over and over, and I think that's good. In my experience, and I'm like, well, I can't remember when I started, but I was trying to think this other day. I know I've been assigned for the Tri-Peaks League 20 years now. And we're doing the best job we've ever done in terms of gathering information from a lot of different people and listening to that. We lost one really good piece of feedback a couple of years ago because, as you all know, Ray Lutz was at every officiating camp that happened for 2 months straight and saw so many people and could give firsthand knowledge on a lot of people, and we don't have that person anymore. So we're having to rely on a lot of people to cover those bases, but we have a lot of people giving input, and I would say last year, more of that back from people observing, people working with people, and video on sometimes was passed back. So I think that process is the best it's ever been in my experience of doing this with a group of assigners.
Okay. Bob Lansing, do you see a discrepancy between male and female officials and the number of boys varsity games they are assigned?
Hi, so first of all, let's make something really clear. I don't base my assignments on your gender. I base my assignments on your skill set. If I think that you're capable of working a varsity game, be it a male or a female game, you're going to get the opportunity. I would like to do some stats on the number of women that we have in this organization and the number of games that they get, but I'm going to go back to my original comment. It doesn't really matter to me. If you're good enough to work any level, a Palmer Doherty game, if you're a female, you're going to work that game. That's my response, and sorry to be so black and white in a particular subject, but that's about all I got.
I would say this, that I think our state assigning crew, and I think kind of comes from the top down, and the people that work for CHASA have done a great job in the past 4 or 5 years of getting women officials in games played by boys. And so I think we have a little responsibility to have them prepared for those situations. I think they were ahead of us as assigners sometimes, and they put lady officials in games played by boys some years back, and we weren't giving them the same opportunities night in and night out during the regular season. So all of a sudden they're thrown in this game, which is different, just by size and athleticism and some of that stuff. And they weren't getting the reps to see those games. So I think we need to be aware of that and give them the reps so that when they have that game at a playoff level, they've seen the game played that way before.
From a women's perspective, I think you have to realize that there are some coaches out there who would rather not see a female official during the games. And in the other perspective, there are some female coaches that would rather see an all-female crew out there. So we have to understand and get that balance. But if I was a female official in this organization, I would turn to Rachel Martinez and find out why she is the most sought-after female basketball official in this organization and in the state, and find out what makes her tick.
I was actually, I just want to piggyback on what Bob just said right there, is that maybe in one of our meetings, we can have a breakout session where you could facilitate the breakout session, Rachel, and talk about the dynamic, the relationship between coaches and you personally, and that would probably help with the preparation of other women who want to officiate boys games. Bob made the comment, most sought out female official. I think she's most sought out from my perspective, official period. And, you know, she did the 4A boys game this year. And she knocked it out of the park. So we have one of the best female officials in the state of Colorado in this association, and we need to probably lean on her a little bit to get her perspective on what she goes through on a regular basis during boys games, and help, you know, flatten out that curve for others.
We have about 10 minutes left and a few more questions. So I think the next two questions came from the same person, so I'm gonna try to lump it up into one question. So if I ask for evaluations during the season, is that a requirement to move up on the rating schedule? If so, how can I have more conversations about my performance to get better games? And the second part of this question is gonna be, can I request partners to work with during the season? So is there a way veteran officials can be paired with certain partners once or twice during the season?
Yes, on the last question, you can request for the PPAC League, you can make that request. Is it going to be always granted? I don't know if I can guarantee that. I can guarantee it at the sub-varsity level. And I know that a lot of the varsity officials would be willing to work that sub-varsity game with you. And I think part of that question was too, is about conversation. Start talking to varsity officials and find out what they expect of their partners in games. And ask those varsity officials to actually share that information with the assigners. Does the process, does that affect the ranking system? I think it can, but I really think word of mouth is more important than the ranking system. There's officials from last year, mid-season, based solely on word of mouth, several of them got their rankings adjusted mid-season. And I don't think it had anything to do, and correct me, but I don't think it had much to do with the evaluation more than it did word of mouth.
So I think you need to get some type of feedback, and it's an evaluation or a 3x5 card or something, but you need to get some feedback on how you did on a particular game or games. Is it a requirement? At one time, it was a requirement that we had to get 5 evaluations and do 5 evaluations. And I'm not quite sure why we kind of deviated from that requirement, but the bottom line is get some feedback. And again, it's word of mouth, like John said, sometimes it's word of mouth, or you happen to have an assigner watching you on the JV game and say, well, that person did a real nice job, and we're going to give that person a shot. That has happened on a number of occasions. And so just keep continually growing, get some feedback. You got to listen. If you talk to some of the old timers, what we used to do is we used to do our freshman game, and if we're lucky, we got a JV game, but we hounded these varsity officials. We watched them work. We asked when they asked a question, we asked a question. We asked them for help. Hey, what did you see? Or, hey, Bob, I noticed you got the varsity game after my JV game. Can you show up early and give me an observation? And I will bet you that 99.9% of all the varsity guys and gals will provide you with that feedback. So you've got to ask the question. You can't just sit back and wait for things to happen. You've got to make it happen. No one's going to wait for you. You got to make it happen.
Okay. Wow. You guys have to put your listening ears on. This is a long one. Okay. Start to groom the younger players to the varsity environment. We have some up and coming officials that are on the bubble, and I think our association needs to see their worth. Suggest the assigners play a more pivotal role in looking at these up and coming officials with the opportunity to officiate a varsity level game. The game can be lower level varsity contest assigned with 2 veteran officials. This way the veteran members on the crew can assist in providing input as to what the younger official needs to adjust or how to work in calling the game. Also, it would be important for the veteran crew members to contact the assigner after the game to discuss their ability to work varsity level games. This information must be shared with other assigners as well.
Was there a question there?
No.
Okay, I didn't think there was.
No question. Just
So I think that was a statement, and I think if you've listened tonight and then listened to that statement, much of what's suggested there has been happening. I would give John kudos. I think he did a great job last year of trying to create the situations where veteran officials were on a self-varsity game with some newer, up-and-coming, sometimes almost brand-new officials, so that they could help them, observe them, give them feedback. Again, it's an area I think we're making a lot of headway in, and I think a lot of those suggestions have happened.
So I think we do a really good job in identifying those who are up-and-coming officials, and some could escape our grasp because we may not know them, but I think between the 3 of us, we do a real nice job saying, God, we got Bob Markham out there, he did a great job in the JV game, let's look at him some more, and then let's eventually move him up. I didn't particularly like the statement about lower level varsity games because there is no such animal as a lower level varsity game. If there is one, you let me know. But every game.
You'll let the coach know that night that that's a lower level.
I probably will not let the coach know that either. But every game's important. Freshman, JV, varsity, boys or girls, come to work really hard at your skill set. So walk out to the gym, and I'm gonna pick on two schools in the BFL. You got CSDB against Edison. You think that's a lower level game? You're not gonna work that game. Okay?
Right. We got two questions left. John Caricato, never request officials.
Yeah, yes, they do. They also request not to see officials as well. So there's that balance. But yeah, actually, say the Sand Creek coach, there's two officials in this room right now that they're his favorite. And so he talks to me all the time about them. And, you know, so yeah, the coaches all the time talk about officials to us and share information. And, you know, I think that's why it's important that when you go out and do your game, regardless if it's the 4 o'clock game or the 5:30 or the 7 o'clock game, go out there with a purpose and take charge. Take charge of that game, because they're seeing you and they'll recognize you, and then they'll share that information with us.
Okay, last question. And I think we've already discussed this ad nauseum, but I'll ask it anyhow. Bob, this would be for you. How much do the three assigners talk regarding an official and their qualifications to officiate certain games or levels of games, example 3A, 4A, 5A?
More all the time, and I would say, again, this last year, there was a lot of that. I remember kind of did the signing in 3 different settings, I think. We first did the auto assign, and I understand I got blamed for that total mess up, but that's okay. I still think it has some tweaking and some merit somewhere down the road, but really the end of that kind of forced us into doing a lot of talking and purposely trying to make sure we got whatever term you're going to use, up and coming, some lower ranked officials that were ready, and some varsity games. And I remember 2 assigning sessions that we just sat and talked through the whole list of officials before we ever began the selection process, and just shared ideas and thoughts and what we'd seen and what we'd heard and all those things.
I go back to the up and coming basketball official. Other than yourself, you should let us know. I challenge the veterans to let us know who these people are, so we can take another look at them. As I said, we do a real nice job in getting the right people in the right games, and getting those younger officials an opportunity. I just want to let you know that we're hurting. This organization is going to be in trouble if we do not recruit 50 to 60 more basketball officials. We are going to be in trouble. So I ask and challenge all of you that sits in this room, get out and get some folks, get some younger people. Don't get the people that are in the mid-30s or late 30s or early 40s. We can use them on middle school programs, but we need them, and we need younger kids in our high school program. We really do. Well, you're going to be working double headers 4 days a week. I'm not sure you want to do that or not, but help us.
30-year-old is old? What is up with that? What does that mean? Bob Market? I mean, never mind, don't have to answer. Answer the question real quick, daily. We talk daily, either on the phone, in person, or through email, or texting, but it's daily.
Okay, that was it for the questions. Carrie's going to check to see if we can run over a couple minutes in case there are any questions from the floor. So until Carrie comes back and says we're getting kicked out, are there any questions from the floor that we did not ask already.
It's not attribution, folks, so don't be shy.
Andy, do you want to, can people ask questions on YouTube Live, the 10 people that are watching?
I'll ask.
No questions from the floor, so while we're waiting for Andy to check on the YouTube Live people and Terry to come back, thank you guys very much for coming out here and doing this. I thought it was pretty awesome. For those of you who submitted the questions, thank you very much. I have no idea who you are. I was totally anonymous, so I appreciate you taking the time to do that as well. Anything from YouTube? Oh, Gary.
As those three guys sit up there, I'm struck by the it factor and people that do this craft. It's hard, it's difficult, and you have to get the rule book. But the biggest thing that I notice up there is when I watch John Caricato and Bob Markham. If you have never watched them referee, they have the it factor. And the it factor is energy, never taking a play off, and being able to communicate. So those three things, if you watch them, they never take a play off. And they're fabulous officials. There's some others sitting in this room that are fabulous. And you need to go and watch them and figure out where you are in this pecking order of officiating. And it takes work and reading and video and extra effort. You just can't come out November 30th and think that you can referee. It's a full-time journey over a number of years, and you have to work at it. So food for thought, there's two pretty good examples sitting in front of you.
That wasn't a question.
No, that wasn't a question, but do you have any from YouTube?
No.
Okay, no question. Hey, real quick, I know Summer Lake's coming up. Did you, were you raising your hand? Okay, a former Division I supervisor told me this once. He had heard about this up and coming official. And it just happened to be that this official was working his nephew's middle school game. So he shows up and watched the game to watch his nephew, but this official that had all this rave was there. And the official was just going through the motions, not doing his job, not communicating, not hustling every play, taking plays off. And so the supervisor goes up to him after the game and says, hey, what do you think about officiating? Do you like doing this? Or are you just doing it for the money? He goes, no. He goes, I'm just doing this until I get called up to D1. Okay. The dude had no idea who he was talking to. So my point of that story is, even though you guys are doing Summer League, Rachel may be up in the stands watching incognito and you won't see her. Trust me, if you're taking the day off, these three guys are gonna know about it, okay? So work every game like it's being watched by one of these three guys, by Gary, by Rachel, by Kevin, okay? It's not that hard to do it. I know some of us are gonna be working 15, 20 games a week, it seems like, but just don't take it off, because you will move up if people see you, and there are gonna be people watching you, and you're not gonna know that they're watching you, okay? So, oh, John has something to say.
Just to go off of what you said there, last year, Doran Gottschall was watching a Calhoun game, junior high game. And he texted me and he said, and I don't know if you guys know who Doran Gottschall is. If you don't, he's a Division I Mountain West and other conferences, been doing it for a long time. And he says to me, who's working this game? And I'm like, oh boy, here we go. And they were identified as the person, she's got a lot of tattoos, boy, she can work. So right away I knew who it was. But again, it goes back to the story that Richard was talking about. You just never know who's going to be out in the stands. And the relationships that we have, we've all been doing this for 30 plus years. We know a lot of the local group. They will call us, they will contact us, even if they're not in the association anymore, and they're going to share their opinion and feedback about our officials. So every time you step up and on that court, I think you need to work with that mindset. and work as hard as you can.
Okay, last chance for four minutes. Yeah.
I've got a question. You guys talked about summer ball. Some of us do multiple sports throughout the whole school year. Me personally, I give myself the summer to basically rest my body for the next year. Do I get penalized for that?
I applaud you for that.
Answer your question, Dale, is no, you will not be penalized for that. And because why should you? You got life to live and you got other things to do. And if you work for summer basketball for Bob Lancy, I mean, that's okay for me. But if you don't,
I think you need to be applauded because of multiple sports.
Yeah.
That's a big
Your
one.
body says, hey, you gotta give me a break here. And the only time I can do that is during summer. I understand that there's a shortage of officials. Bob, to your response a while ago, you'll never do it. I have tried and tried and tried, and one of the biggest reasons why kids do not want to get involved is because of the parents. I've been in this probably longer than most people in this room here. I have never been confronted, I've seen or heard of other people that had with parents. This happened to me a week ago. And it bothered the hell out of me. And one thing about what you guys need to do before somebody gets hurt is if I'd have done something, more likely to be that at me as an assault. But when a parent confronts an official for whatever the case might be, there is never an administrator out there. They're there while they get our signatures. Once the signature is there, they're gone. You guys need to have security or administrators to stick around till after the games are over with, so that we do not be confronted by parents. Parents are trying to live through their kids. Kids are starting to get burned out. By the time they get to high schools, they don't want to participate in sports anymore because of the parents. You guys need to do something, whether it be through the CHASA, through the schools, through the administrators, whatever the case might be. Because I'll tell you one thing, I will never be confronted through that again. There were no administrators whatsoever. This was on a baseball game. Good game. I had a parent who came up and said, Blue, you guys called a good ball game. And I think the reason she said that is because she heard the confrontation that I was having with this parent. And he got in my face, and I kept taking steps back, telling him, get away from me, and he wouldn't do it.
I think, Dale, as we meet with all the athletic directors and the coaches and those kind of things, we do overemphasize the need to have security and a site supervisor readily available for our officials. We do that every year. Now, whether or not some schools, a lot of things could happen. I mean, I had an incident at a school where a parent went back to the locker room of the officials, and the officials thought it was the site supervisor. They opened the door, and there's a parent. Well, I confronted that athletic director, and he had another situation. He had two kids fighting somewhere in the gym, so he was not able to be there. But you're right, there is an issue with parents, and that's why most officials do not want to partake. I mean, kids don't want to partake in this application, but we do our fair share of advocating security for our basketball officials. We really do. So, and going back to the off season, we need, and I applaud you for taking a break because we need you during the season because we're working to death. But during the off season, ladies and gentlemen, you need to work on a lot of things. You need to work on your health. If you're overweight, you need to lose weight. My conversations with coaches is that they do not want to see fat basketball officials out there. They don't. Because one, you can't keep up with the speed of the game. High school kids are getting bigger, stronger, faster. And if you can't keep up with the game because you're carrying this 40-pound basketball on yourself, you're not going to make it. You're going to die of a heart attack. So take care of yourself because, again, during the basketball season, you saw my emails. Some nights we have 70, 75, 90 games in a night. We can't do that without working you guys and gals at double hitters. And if you're overweight, you're not going to make it. You're going to die. We don't want that to happen to you. So take this off season to get healthy. That's all I'm asking.
Hey, Dale, thanks for the question, and we do, hold on, I'll get you. We do a meeting with the coaches before the year, and so I'll remember to bring that up about security. And Andy was next.
Yeah, I was saying, that's exactly what I said, and
I was just gonna take it to one, getting back to the, you never know who's in the stands. I just wanted to take that one more step so that everybody understands it's not just, you never know who's in the stands. You never know who's at King Soopers. You never know who's at Home Depot. A lot of you know I'm involved heavily in youth soccer, and right now, as we speak, we're having our tryouts. And parents talk about the tryout. Well, the tryout event is only 3 days or 4 days of this week. We try to emphasize to parents, players try out 365 days a year. It's what they do at school, it's what they do here, it's what they do there. It has nothing to do with the sport. Same thing goes for us. If we are seen berating a cashier at King Soopers or flipping somebody off because they cut us off if we get into the road rage stuff, it's how we conduct ourselves in this community and everywhere else 365 days that you never know who's watching. Everybody has camera phones now, has a camera on their phone now. And all I gotta do is start the video up and say, I recognize this person from a basketball game. I don't know who their name is, but here they are being a jerk. And you just don't know. So as we become part of this organization and part of this advocation, it is something that we have to be citizens 365. And I don't want to beat a dead horse here because these guys did a great job of talking about that factor. I just wanted to emphasize it and take it to the next level. It's a year-round, it's a lifestyle, it's a way to conduct yourself as an adult and a professional wherever we're going, whoever we're talking to, in every situation in life.
Agree. And just to pigtail on that a little bit, and then we'll get out of here. When you guys go to places like Buena Vista or Lamar, if you have to go, whatever, everybody likes to go have a good refreshment after the game. My suggestion, I learned this from doing RMAC football, get out of town first if you're gonna drink. Because more than likely, the families of the game that you just finished doing, they're going to that same restaurant you're at. And the last thing they need is to record you or go back to Bob or John and say, hey, your 3 officials after the game were in Chili's just drinking it up and bitching about the coaches. So just get out of town a little bit, or just don't even drink at all, one or the other. But I'm not gonna tell you not to drink. Please don't drink and drive, but just use common sense when you go out for dinner, especially as a crew after a game and you're out of town, because you guys can't hide yourselves. You look the same in civilian clothes as you do in stripes. So, okay. Carrie, thank you for setting up this room. Appreciate it. And can we hear a nice applause for these? Thank you very much. That was very helpful.